My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be John and the Universan Video 12, A Visit to Chichen Itza, Part 3. So here's my book, John and the Universan, Nothing is Known. Two entities inside a beat-up old spaceship. Who are they? On the way to visit Stonehenge, John wonders whether his English ancestors might have been involved in the building of that mysterious megalith. Suddenly, he finds himself being held prisoner in a spaceship by an alien who tells John that despite government secrecy on his home planet, he's heard rumors that over many centuries, his own ancestors have taken part in a series of major building projects here on Earth. Together, John and the alien embark on a tour of ancient sites, including Stonehenge, in search of their common ancestral roots. So they're on the way to Stonehenge, but at the moment they're at Chichen Itza. It is my contention that whatever the concerns of a story of a particular work of literature, so the story of this piece of literature is visiting these megaliths and finding out about them from the tour guides. So whatever the story of a particular piece of literature, the universal topic of all serious literature is the operation of myth, creation, and the human mind, MYTH. I'll read the third section of the visit of John and the alien, the Universan, to the site of Chichen Itza, and then I will talk about one of the literary versions of the phenomenon of myth as the main component of human thinking. The main thing we do in our minds is create myths, patterns in our mind, and then try to make them come true. Okay, let's go to page 43. Here it is. John and the Universan on the way to explore the megalith of Chichen Itza. We're almost here, ladies and gentlemen, says our Chichen Itza guide as we all peer out the windows of the coach in anticipation, as I am sure you can tell by the ambience in the air. Upon arrival, a local guide will lead you on an entertaining and informative tour of the architectural splendors which are the expression in stone of the Mayan view of the world. You will have some free time to stroll the grounds after taking the guided tour, and you can swim in the cenote of Samal. These waters were sacred to the Mayans, though rather mysterious to we who swim here today. Close your eyes and float on the waters, and let the essence of Mayan thought seep into your mind. Now, the Universan is speaking to John while the tour guide is talking. Slave labor, John, slave labor, the Universan almost shouts, but no one seems to hear him on the coach. This was the rumor that circled our globe. Not one elite could stop one rumor. A rumor has a seed like an earthly oak tree, a DNA like a human plague. It thrives on my planet just as well as it thrives on yours. Pass the word became the watchword. Life is tough enough on this planet, and now your troubles will be made worse. You will be a slave, an exile, ensconced in a foreign land, worked to death on a foreign celestial sphere, drifting untold light years away from your native home. It started what you would call it in a wine shop, John, though we don't have a drink like wine, just a place where people, entities, Universans, would meet throughout the day. It took just one lowly person, John, to say, this cannot go on. Our people put up with this in the past, John, but why should such calumny be allowed to poison today? Arise, my brothers, arise, my sisters. We don't have sex, so no families, but I'm sure, John, you know what I mean. Let's overthrow our oppressors. Let's accost them in their palaces. Well, we don't have dwellings, John, not like you, not castles or palaces anyway, as our history is not like yours. You understand what I'm doing, I hope. I'm not giving the literal words that were used on that day. Let us surprise them at their leisures, take them prisoner, and lock them away. Let us be masters in our own kingdoms, John, maître chez nous. Let us take control of our destinies. Let us select from among our people, from among our entities, from among our own, a group of people who will treat us not as humans, John. We never use that word, but as worthies, as deservers, ones who, without greed or guile or acquisitiveness. Well, the word sped through the countryside, another word of yours, on hooves, on hopes, on wings, tongues to ears, John, in a human sense again, and soon the whole planet was a fire pit of smoldering rage. Word of a possible Earth probe lit a match, John. The planet suddenly burst into flame. A flame without oxygen, John, with a higher ignition point and producing a much higher temperature than does yours. A forest fire, a conflagration, a planet turning itself upside down, a planet lurching, veering, swaying, a planet righting itself as it turns, a planet seeking equilibrium, harking back to its birth, as it were, a planet spinning, John, from out of control to control. Would you say, one of our passengers asked our guide, when the guide asked whether there are any questions about our day tour of Chichen Itza, which he reminds us just now, a few short minutes away, that the mystery of all these ancient wonders of the earth, and I've visited now almost all of what you would call monoliths or megaliths or monuments or whatever term you would use, is as to why these ancient societies, after such magnificent architectural achievements, seem to have all disappeared from the face of the earth. So one of the passengers on the coach asked, well, why have all these societies disappeared after building these marvelous megaliths? Humans often form a myth of perfection in their minds and then have difficulty maintaining the equivalent of that myth in their everyday lives. So they form a myth of perfection and try to keep it every day. Every melodrama, every romantic comedy has a three-part mythical structure. In the first phase of the story, two people meet and form myths of perfection in their minds in which each is the perfect partner for the other. This includes the meeting of the two characters, the forming of the shared myth of perfection, and the beginning of what seems like a perfect, harmonious future. Now, the second phase of the romantic comedy form is the loss of faith in the shared myth by one of the characters. Something becomes known or suspected about one of the myth sharers that causes the other person to opt out of the shared myth. Usually one of the characters wants the shared myth relationship to end, so he or she can move on, while the other character wants to maintain the shared myth and keep the relationship going. So that's phase two. Excuse me. The third phase of the romantic comedy form is the restoration of the shared myth. Whatever seems to undermine the shared myth has proven to have been false or has now been remedied, and the shared myth of the two as perfect partners is once again their everyday reality. Dozens of movies have been made on that three-part pattern. So what does a story of perfect partners of a shared myth have to do with the story of an alien and an earthling? Perhaps a variation of the romantic comedy form could be that of an earthling and an alien having the possibility of a shared myth. Maybe there can be a perfect relationship here. If so, would you say that the story of this book, John and the Universan, Nothing is Known, fits the pattern of the romantic comedy of partnership first, distrust second, and restoration of trust third, of shared myth first, of loss of faith in a shared myth second, and restoration of faith in a shared myth third, with some differences, of course, in terms of relationship of the two main characters of this novel. So we're in the middle of the novel. There's a lot more to come, but that's something to keep in mind. Is this a variation on the romantic comedy idea of sharing a myth, the myth being kind of damaged and the myth being restored? So once again, here is my book, John and the Universan, Nothing is Known. It's found on Amazon. It's also found on my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com, where there's more information. On my website, johnpassville.ca, there are 2 free books, the Planning Notebook and the Journal, both of which I wrote while I was writing and polishing this novel, each of which can be read just by clicking on the cover icon at johnpassville.ca. Lastly, I'll say thank you for watching this video.